Hello everyone! After hours of intensive research on the complete Kanto Pokédex, which includes more than 200 Pokémon, if we consider their evolutions and regional forms, I have discovered a hidden secret in the gameplay. Why does Golem lose 2 arms when it evolves? I warn you, if you love stories about the design of the first generation and the mysteries surrounding the composition of the first 150 Pokémon, you won't be disappointed. The theory I will present is based on the sprites of 4 different Pokémon and a specific evolution method, that of Graveler into Golem. We've all heard about the evolutionary line of Butterfree, where the Pokémon Venomoth actually matches Metapod much better in terms of eyes and overall face. This theory is further supported when we look at the Pokémon Venonat, which has the same colors as Butterfree. When you learned about this theory, you probably thought, but yes, it makes sense now. Pokémon Red and Blue are full of bugs left by the developers. Shout out to the east shore of Cinnabar Island in Glitch City, by the way. Mistakes are common in the game. This perfectly proves that the Game Freak team, who would go on to create the biggest franchise of all time, made an error by mixing up the 2 butterflies in the game. One last example before diving into the hypothesis mentioned in the title of the video is the swapped evolutions of Magikarp and Dragonair. Although I find this theory less plausible than the first one, which I personally consider canon, it still has the merit of explaining what went through the minds of the game's creators when they saw the transition from Dragonair, a sea serpent, to Dragonite, a dragon. Magikarp has Dragonite's colors, and Gyarados is a sea serpent, just like Dragonair and Dratini. However, if there was an exchange between these 2 evolutions, it probably happened when the Pokémon designs were not yet finalized. In short, all this is to say that the Pokédex of the game, considered biblical by young owners, has flaws. And more than 20 years later, some ideas from the developers were cancelled at the last moment, whether by mistake or purely artistic choice. What is certain is that with each new generation, and thus the expansion of the Pokédex, the ways to find or evolve Pokémon have increased, and were later simplified by Game Freak, as is the case for the evolutions of Eevee into Leafeon and Glaceon, which can evolve with an elemental stone in the 8th generation, rather than a specific location as before. In the 5th generation, a completely new type of evolution system appeared in the franchise, and it was quite specific. At that time, while the internet allowed for quick understanding of its mechanics, it would have taken much more thought to figure out that exchanging Shelmet and Carablast would give you Axelgor and Escavalier respectively. The idea behind this evolution was very simple. Shelmet, in contact with Carablast during the trade, steals its armor and team once the exchange is complete. Yes, but so what? What if I told you that in the first generation, the developers had already planned this evolution system? Note that I said planned. To recap, there are Pokémon that can evolve through trading in the first generation: Kadabra, Haunter, Machoke, and Graveler. For these theories, we will focus on the last 2 Pokémon mentioned. So yes, you understood correctly in my opinion. Machamp and Golem are more related than you might think. If we compare the faces of these 2 evolutionary lines, we can easily observe that Golem loses a pair of arms, while Machamp gains them. You might say that many Pokémon evolve by gaining or losing limbs. Proof with Geodude, for example. Yes, but it doesn't stop there. Have you noticed that the heads of Machoke and Machop are different from Machamp's, and the same comparison can be made for Geodude and Graveler with Golem? If we observe closely, we see that Golem has a more lizard-like head that resembles Machop's more closely. On the other hand, Machamp has rough traits reminiscent of Graveler's head, in addition to having lost its tail. The design thus suggests that there is a link between these 2 Pokémon, both evolving through trading. And what if the developers had planned that only by trading Machop and Graveler with each other could they evolve? Similar to the concept of Axelgor and Escavalier, but with a first-generation theme, DNA. You may know that the Pokédex in Pokémon Red and Blue seems to reflect on the science of failed experiments. Muk, Mewtwo, Porygon, Voltorb, Grimer, many Pokémon can actually be considered as damages caused by human technological mismanagement. Machop and Graveler crossing paths would be this bug present in the Link cable machine that permanently transforms these 2 Pokémon. Unfortunately, the developers did not manage to code the evolution systems properly, or simply abandoned them before releasing the games. This could explain the deviant design of these 2 final evolutions, as well as Golem's loss of arms, actually gaining the DNA attributes of Machop. What do you think? If you enjoyed the theory and now find the relationship between Kanto's Graveler and Machamp more interesting, feel free to let me know in the comments so we can discuss it. If you want more content, consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, which help highlight small creators. Thank you and see you soon on the channel. Au revoir!